Connor's getting me a battery really quick for mine, but I'll let you have this. I can talk real loud too here. But we're going to light the Advent candle a little differently this year, I think. I'm going to try it this Sunday, and we're going to try to get people in line for the next few Sundays. But something that struck me is we have amazing people in this congregation. And so instead of reading stories from years past, from the Christmas narrative, I wanted you to hear stories of our congregation. And this is kind of in conjunction with something else I want to pose on y'all here today. I want you to meet Sue McDonald here, and I'm going to let her tell a little, if you haven't met her, I'm going to let her tell a little bit about herself here. I've got a few questions for her.
Well, I have your questions here. Nick came to me, and you know Nick is all about change. And we just go with whatever he says. And I'm doing the exact same thing. So I can ask the questions and answer them if you would like. But he came... I'm in... He works at the school too. You know, he's very involved in the school. And he also wants change there. So he said, I have some questions for you. And I want you to answer them in front of the congregation. So I'm just going to tell you the questions he asked me, and I'll tell you my answers. Some of you will have a lot more experience than I do, but I'll tell you my answers, and what Nick would like to do, he can talk about. Okay, the first thing he asked me is, how long have you been a teacher? And I said, about 20 years here. So. And then what made you want to become a teacher? And we actually talked about this at school in some leadership groups. And it was interesting to me that all of us decided at a very young age, and all of you teachers out there probably have the same experience, I'm going to be a teacher. It was something we always knew. Maybe that we enjoyed being with kids. Maybe we had a favorite teacher, like you said. For me, I knew I was going to be a teacher. God had a different plan for what kind of teacher I was going to be than I was going to be. So I went with him because he's smarter than I am. So I became a special education teacher, and it just kept being posed to me. And I would try to get out of it, and it kept coming back, and now I would never do anything different. So he was right. So then Nick wanted to know, how do I meet the needs of my students? And like all teachers, you treat them like your family, and every week I make a list of things I'm going to need for the next week that I don't have in my classroom, and I go out and buy it. That's also probably part of being a teacher. You just do it. You don't think about it. You just go buy it. And some of the difficulties with that are that you're taking that out of your money to make things fit, to make things go well for your classroom. We buy things for your room. You buy things for your kids. You know that our whole congregation purchases things for kids for winter weather. We just keep it going. He asked me, what would it mean to you to have some of those needs met? Well, that's a silly question. And I wrote that it would mean that the students in the classroom would probably run better if we had lists of things that our classroom needs. Some of them may seem kind of silly, but I'm going to try and say why. You know, the kids all have to have their papers punched to put in their notebooks. One classroom, 3-hole punch per classroom. So 20, 25 kids using that, it isn't going to last very long. Pencil sharpeners, we've kind of gone to electric instead of the one on the wall because it doesn't last as long. 25 kids twice a day using a pencil sharpener, they don't last very long. Whiteboard markers, they go out in about 2 months. We do so much with computers now, that we use our whiteboards probably 5 times longer. We project everything onto the whiteboard, and then the students are in charge of moving things on the whiteboard, pulling things down. It's kind of like a CSI show. They're in charge. We're working on returning all of the education to the kids. We model it, return it back to them so that they can in turn be able to teach that content in class. So having our needs met would mean everything. He asked, what would it mean to have a friend to encourage you in your job? Well, as fellow teachers, we encourage each other. But it would mean a lot, I guess, if a community member said, what do you need this week? Or can I see your list? Or emailed you regularly. Nick has all these wonderful ideas, which, as we know, have changed this whole church. So his ideas do work, and we need to encourage him to do more. And so I want to know that these things are all for our kids. They're not for my kids, and that we're not just this church. There's New Virginia, there's Truro, and us, and that I think Nick feels that between all 3 towns, we should be supporting this school. I came here from Johnston, which is a lot bigger. 6 schools feeding into 1, classroom sizes are bigger. And so you think those are your differences. Those kids are going to succeed because they have those big classrooms and they have everything they need. But the only thing I noticed when I came here is in Johnston, the teachers asked for something and it magically appeared. And I came here, and you didn't know where it came from, but when I came here, it was like we had to fight for a piece of paper, and I wasn't used to that. Oh, well, we don't have that. You're going to have to get it yourself. Or folders. Well, we'll save some, but you can only have so many. We're going to allot those. Well, we have enough people in this church right here to help out our school districts. We have other towns that can all help our school districts. And I'm not vying for this, but he is. And you know he's stubborn. And so I'm going to...
Yeah, so you tell us, for you, what does hope mean?
Yes. And this is another difference he has. Usually we read a little bit of scripture, and instead he would like me to say what hope means to me. So I'm going to do that. The Advent candle this week is for hope. Hope to me means belief. I believe that things will happen. I have hope that things will happen. And without it, you have nowhere to go. Look at the hope we had for this church and think back several months as to what our congregation looked like when we had hope, and look at us now. I think that hope produces happiness, and I see families all the time with absolutely nothing to hope for. And they're happy. Why are they happy? Because they have hope. They love just being together. They love their family time. They love what they do with their family. They have hope and they're happy. I no longer wish that, oh, my children went to an Ivy League school, that they married somebody really well-to-do, that they have perfect children. I only hope for happiness. And to me, hope means happiness. So we're going to light the candle today in the name of hope. And the hope for all of us to be happy this season and appreciate being happy. The hope for our congregation, and to continue hope for our very special schools. So we would like to ask everyone to show their hope for our Alan.
So before we get rolling in the sermon, I want to kind of extend on what Sue so eloquently put for us, the hope that we have. We have several teachers in this congregation, and what really struck me, what really kind of irked me to no end, is when I started to hear some of our kids at the high school level, at even the junior high level, say, well, that's just an interstate education. We don't do stuff great. We're just an interstate education. I crumbled inside and I thought, oh my gosh, is that the way, the mentality that's around here? Is that the hope that's around here? Is just, that's just what we have? And so as I got talking, as I got more involved with the school, as I got kind of involved with that, I heard that there were wish lists on the elementary, specifically doorways. And so I said, I've been talking with Sue probably for about a year now on what are we going to do about this? What can we do with this? And so I said, let's do something crazy, because if we don't, then what are we doing here? And so I have printed out a picture and a name for every single K through 5th grade teacher and special education. And what I want to happen, I want to try this. There's about 20, 25 of them, and there's about 20, 25 of you or more out there. And so what I want to happen is I would like, if you're in the school system, if you're working in the school, I'm going to give you an exempt on this. We'll hit you up later. But if you are outside the school district, what I would like you to, I would challenge you to do is to come up after the service. I'm going to just lay these out in the final song. And come up, grab a teacher maybe that you don't know, specifically one that your kid's not in probably, or maybe never had. What I'd like, if you can avoid that way, but I'd like even 2 or 3 families to get together and basically just adopt them in a weird, strange way, but more so just become their friend. Because we are about making relationships. That's what our whole mission's about. Making relationships with God, making relationships with others. And so even if you email these teachers, their email address is all on the school websites. That's where I got the pictures. And so if you go on there and just create contact. Some of them might not be open right away, but if you start talking, we've got connections. Sue, Sherry, Margot, we've got people in the school district here. If you make connections, just say, what can I get on your wish list? What do you need in your classroom that would make everything go smoother? And maybe for Christmas, spend how much you spend on somebody's gift for them. Maybe you could do that just this time. And then write them encouraging notes. Tell them how great of a job they have. Tell them what a great job they're doing. Because here's the real difference between us and other schools that I see is everybody says, oh, the pay's so much worse. Oh, everything's so much worse here. But I think that all that could go away if we created an environment over there that said, hey, you're loved. You've got a friend here. You've got somebody to connect to. You've got some encouragement. And all your needs, we can supply those things. Because really, how much our school supplies, let's go to Office Depot and just spend $20, $30 and you can chop off most of those needs. Because I think that we, as a church, need to be doing something. This is a perfect way to connect and not only to supply for our kids, but also make a friend. Really, just make a friend. Know what they interest, because believe it or not, believe it, on my stand today is a Believe It with the number 3 Iowa 28 Nebraska 20. And I don't know who put that there. I got a few texts after the game, and I was actually at the game. It was cold, but that's the kind of relationships that you build. That you just say, what do you enjoy? Who are you as a person outside of school? What do you do? Because I've met some of the teachers, and I know one of them who's a 6th grade teacher. I think that took Mr. Vance's spot. She's actually from Grimes. She does amazing mission work with Latin America. Amazing mission work. How cool is that? We have a teacher doing that and caring and thinking about that. I met another new teacher, and her she's in here and friends with this other teacher I know from Grimes, and she does rodeo. Like, how cool is that? We've got some awesome teachers. We've got some awesome people.
I've coached with several of these people. I'm coaching right now with one of them. And he's just a great guy. And how cool is that we could go and meet him, ask him what he does, ask him what he enjoys, talk to him about the sports that he likes, and supply him with what he needs to actually do his job better. Because how amazing would that be if out of this church we created a community that was vastly different? That's our whole mission here. That's our whole goal here. And so with that mindset, we're talking today about a deliverer, because that's our hope. Ultimately, our hope is a deliverer. Because we've reached this time. I hope that you all had a great Thanksgiving. I hope you all were safe Black Friday shopping, got the deals that you needed to get, and all such. But what happens at this time of year is we tend to make it more than it needs to be. I didn't do a total count, but I imagine there's hundreds of movies. Probably one of the best that I've seen on Netflix, there's White Christmas from the 1950s, 60s, in there somewhere. It was a sing-along, and it's a great movie. Go watch it. Go feel some Christmas joy. But we make this big eschatological hubbub about Christmas each year. We say, this will be the year that everything is right. This will be the year that the kids won't get bored after opening their toys 5 hours later. This will be the year that everything falls into place, the year that everything makes sense. And if you watch the commercials for Christmas, you're going to see that over and over and over again. The problem is, it probably won't. It probably won't. Because what the advertisement industry, what they're trying to get us to do is to buy into that. And say, Christmas is about buying that perfect gift that will make somebody happy, fully happy. It's about that right word at the right time at the family dinner that everyone is forgiven and all is well. But it's just a shadow of something greater. And that's what we're talking about today. It's a shadow that all grief will go away, that something more is happening here. And that's why we celebrate Advent, which means arrival. And so today we're going to go a little different than the typical Advent scripture. We're going to Exodus. And so if you've got your Bibles, open up to the first part of Exodus. And if you have not heard anything about Exodus, what happened is the people of Israel, all right, the nation of Israel, ends up in Egypt. And they end up in Egypt because if you remember, if you don't know the story, look up Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Go watch the play, go learn about it. What happens is Joseph has a dream. He gets sent into Egypt as a slave. He rises to power over time. I'm giving you the Reader Digest version of it. And he rises to power, and his brothers come, and they say, they don't know it's him, and they say, we need help. And he, through a long story short, he helps them out, and they all move to Egypt to live during the famine. And so the people of Israel are in Egypt. And all of a sudden, in verse 8 of chapter 1, it says, Then a new king, who did not know about Joseph and his dreamcoat, came to power in Egypt. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become much too numerous for us. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. What he didn't know was the history behind that of Joseph and the fact that they were living peacefully together. And he said, I am worried. We got to have security on this. We got to make sure everything's safe for our people. And it sounds very familiar to a story and narrative that's going on in our country right now. We got to make sure it's safe before anything else happens. We got to protect ourselves and not welcome them. We got to keep them at bay, so we're going to make them slaves. And so the Pharaoh made them slaves, and over time, to make them less numerous, had all the firstborn of the Israelites, or all the boys of the Israelites, gave this order, every boy that is born you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. He was afraid they were going to rise up against him. And here comes the story of Moses. Moses, if you don't know, was born during this time, sent down the river. The Pharaoh's daughter found him, brought him in, and he lived as royalty. Now, the verse today, verse 23 through 25. During that long period, the king of Egypt died. The Israelites groaned in their slavery and cried out. And the cry for help because of their slavery went up to God. God heard their groaning, and he remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. So God looked on the Israelites and was concerned about them. Or as the pastor today said, he knew their pain. He looked upon them and he knew, is what the translation that pretty much goes word for word with the Hebrew. He knew. And so we see three things about God. First, that God knows. God knows. God wasn't a stranger to their pain. God wasn't all of a sudden surprised that they were in slavery and that they were being oppressed and that hurt. Scripture says God knows. God knew. And so, for whatever you're going through this season, for whatever you're bringing, whatever baggage you brought in today, God knows. God knows. And those are powerful words when you consider them, because oftentimes we feel like we hold on to things that nobody else could know about. Nobody else could understand. Nobody else could grasp. But the Scripture says, God knows. God gets it. And as we go down the narrative, we see in Jesus, God, in human flesh, God knows that pain of being left alone. God knows that pain of being hurt and oppressed. God knows that pain of being accused innocently. God knows. Second thing we hear in this passage, verses 23 through 25, it says, in verse 24, God heard. God hears. God doesn't forget. It wasn't like all of a sudden God left them be and said, go and do, and I'll catch up with you later. That's not what was happening. God heard their cry and said, I hear it, yes. I hear it. So oftentimes we say, God is not paying attention to me. God is not listening to me. And my question to you, are you telling God? Are you talking to God? Are you praying to God? Are you saying, God, this hurts right now? Because not only does God know, but God hears that cry. God hears what you're hoping for. God hears those things. God heard the Israelites. And what happened? This is the third thing. God knows, God hears, and God intervened. He remembered their covenant. And he did what? He sent a deliverer. So what happens with Moses down the line, if we go with the story, Moses he realized, based on his ethnicity, that sooner or later, I'm not an Egyptian. I don't know if it was told, I can't recall right this second, but he knows he's a Hebrew. And he sees out there a Hebrew slave master, an Egyptian, dealing harshly with one of his people. And so he kills that slave master. And he thinks that nobody saw him, that he's all scot-free. And so he runs off. He thinks he's good. And then he tells two of the Hebrews to stop arguing the next day. And they say, what are you going to do? Kill me like you did the Egyptian? And he freaks out and he runs to the hills and becomes a shepherd. He leaves. Smokes town. He'd been caught. He went from royalty to living out with the sheep with no security. He was the security. With nothing to provide. He had to provide for himself everything. He runs. Gone. Now here's the thing that happens over and over in the Bible. God shows that people that do stupid stuff can be redeemed because they did something. Now, part of the Iowa-Nebraska game, it's the coolest thing. I've been to all of them in the Big Ten series. All right, see more wins than losses, just letting you know. But one of the coolest things that they do, and one of the happiest thing that they do, is at halftime of each game, they bring two people out, one from Nebraska, one from Iowa, and they recognize them because it's called the Heroes Game. And they tell this great story about what this person had done this year. This year it was a officer and somebody else who had helped a guy on the side of the road having a heart attack here in Iowa. And Nebraska, it was an 18-year-old lifeguard who saved the boy, performed CPR on him. Got him out of the water, performed CPR on him. Saved his life. And those are awesome stories. And I remember someone from the past, and how weird would it be if they stuck somebody out there and they said, congratulations to Tim. Tim, this year, did not kill anybody. Give him applause. And And they go, and this is Jane. And Jane, she didn't lie about anything. She didn't gossip. Give her applause, right? Yeah! And we'd be confused. Why are they considered heroes? Because the thing about heroes, and the thing about those two people, is because they did something. We're celebrating for something they did, not something they didn't do. You can be a Christian all your life, or call yourself a Christian at least, and just obey the rules and not do the bad things. That's easy. The hard part is when you have to do something. When you have to do something. And Moses, give him credit, he may not have been on the right track, but he did something. He did something. God said, you know what? He's got some initiative. I can work with that. I can work with that. All the other Hebrews, we'll work with them. We'll take them on. But Moses, he did something. I can work with that. And given it was killing somebody, not so great. I'm not saying go do that. What I'm saying is God says, I can work with that. And so Moses is out on the hill, shepherding his flock. And all of a sudden, burning bush. And God says, Moses, I need you to free your people. I need you to do something. And Moses says, I can't do that. And God says, I can, just follow me. Moses says, but I can't talk. I've got to stutter. I need Aaron. And God says, fine, I'll deal with Aaron later, but let's go. Let's go. And so Moses goes back down, approaches Pharaoh with Aaron at his side, and they go through the plagues. First, the plague of blood, and it wasn't just a little lake over there; it was all the water, blood. And Pharaoh said no. And then all of a sudden, it was the plagues of frog, and it wasn't just a couple frogs down the street; it was frogs everywhere: your kitchen, your bathroom, your living room. While you're trying to do anything, trying to sleep at night, frogs everywhere, all over you. And if that wasn't enough, there was about 8 more, all the way down to Passover. And if you know the story, you know that the Hebrew people put blood over the door. And those who didn't lost their firstborn son. And that was when finally Pharaoh said, all right, I've had it. Get out of here. And they walk and they walk and they walk and they approach the sea. And Pharaoh changes his mind and says, no, I want them back. We're missing the labor. We need them back. So the army goes after him. And you can just imagine all the women and the children and the men trying to get across this sea. Just like so oftentimes in our lives that we feel that bondage of oppressed nature of different things. We struggle with things. And we say, we'll never be able to be free. God, how dare you give me this? We'll never be able to be free. And oftentimes, God's probably telling you to do something, but we're so stubborn, we just like to stew in it. And say, woe is me and my afflictions. I can't see past these hard things to do anything for anybody else. Woe is me. And you know these people. And they don't get to go out on the field at halftime and be honored for what they've done. They don't get up in the hall of fame, the hall of pride for just not doing something. God calls us to do things, even in our waiting. God calls us to action while we wait for what we hope for. And that hope is a day when as Isaiah writes, that every tear shall be wiped away. That day will come when the Savior will be here. And it feels millions of years away, that each day is harder on our bones. That you just feel it, you ache when you wake up. And you say, God, how much longer? Well, the Israelites were at the Red Sea and asking God, are you serious? How much longer? And what happens? God provides a way to walk across dry land. And so what I need you to hear today is that just as God delivered his people out of physical slavery, Jesus has come once and will come again to deliver you from so much more. That every sad thing that happens, this is the promise that God makes, every sad thing that happens, every pain, every hurt, every wrongdoing that someone's done to you, that we as Christians believe will someday come untrue. Someday will be made right. That as we live in this fractured and fallen world, where it feels like nothing can ever, that you just can't catch a break. That something great happens in your life, and you think, all right, now I'm on the path to make it happen. And something happens and tears it down. And what God's saying is have hope. There's going to be a day it will be made right. There's going to be a day that all tears will be wiped away. That we'll join in worship. That our faith will be our eyes. That we don't have to believe, we can see for ourselves. And what I'm calling you today to do, as we think about all these teachers and all our kids in this community, what I'm asking you to do is to bring it closer. To make it more of a reality, a tangible reality for our kids and teachers. Make it a tangible reality for our community. Do something so radical that people say, what is going on? And we can say, look, we have hope. We know something more is going to happen. We know how it ends. That the people walk across our land, that they make, after 40 years of wandering, they make that land of milk and honey. But we want to make it come here too. Because we believe. We have hope. That tomorrow may just be that day. Tomorrow may just be that day. So while we're waiting, what are you going to be doing? What are you going to be doing? Who are you going to be? Are you going to be the people that just don't do what they're not supposed to? Are you going to stand up and live out that faith and make it a reality here in this world? What are you going to do? Let's pray. God, we thank you so much for the promise that you've given. We thank you so much in the season that we can not buy into what everybody's trying to sell us, so we cannot buy into the advertisements that say, this will be the year that makes it all happen. But God, we ask that we continually focus on you, continually grow closer to you, and make that hope become a little more of a reality every day. That we can create relationships with other people and with you, God, in such a way that we live out that faith. So God, help us in our disbelief, help us in our doubt, and give us hope to believe that someday all sad things will come untrue. Amen.